Hi, this is Cathy for Trans by Deaf, and this week's question is one which I feel is very important to discuss. The question is, if I had to start transition over again, what things would I change? In my case, where I would like to start in my discussion, when I was 9 years old, I went to my mother and I said, I feel like I am a girl. Immediately she sent me out for counseling, and the counselor spent a lot of time convincing me that that was not a good decision. When I was 12 to 13 years old, I asked my mother again if I could transition, and she said, no, you may not. And again I went to a counselor who spent a lot of time convincing me that I was a boy rather than a girl. The third attempt was when I was between 21 and 22, or in my early 20s. I actually started a transition, dressed as a girl, and went to my classes at the university and went to my job. And I was told by my mother that I could move out of the house if I had to be that way. I was told by my employer that I would no longer have a job. I was told by the person in charge of the department that I was in, the chairman, that I could no longer be in the university, never mind the department. And the religious people around said that they no longer wanted me to be there. This was very devastating, and so my transition only lasted a short period of time. You must realize that these three encounters, two of them were in the mid to late 60s, and the other one was in the early 70s. And at that point in time, people knew very little about transgendered people. Also, there were very few transgender people out there, and there were practically no transgender rights to affect or to protect me at all. So I was basically at the mercy of the people around me. I still say if I had the attempt at 20, I would have left the university, I would have gone and found me a job, and I'd have moved out of the house. But having no money, I couldn't do any of that. So one of the things that I would look at you and say is that if you're thinking about transition and you're in that early age, you have got to have financial resources, the ability to obtain an education, and the ability to go forward with your life. The money is the key issue. You have to have enough money for a place to live, to keep a roof over your head, to buy you food, and to pay for your education. When I got into my late 20s and early 30s, I met my wife and got married, and that changed my outlook somewhat on life. I still continue to dress. I still continue to want to be a woman. But I also wanted to please her, and I wanted to be with her, and I still want to be with her. I went on into my 50s, and the dysphoria kept getting worse and worse and worse until I had to sit down one day and tell my wife that I was transgender and that I needed to transition to become a woman. I believe that was the hardest thing that I have ever done, but yet the most rewarding thing that I've ever done, because it allowed me to leave behind me the male part of me that was not the way I really am inside. It has been very difficult for my wife. It has been very hard for me to go through that transition with my wife and daughter and with the people around me. The big difference now is that there are protections for my job because of the anti-discrimination laws, which do not allow you to discriminate on the basis of sex or on the basis of your desired sex, and that has protected me. So if I had to do over again, I would have stayed with what I was doing at 20 and been braver. But on the other hand, I did not have any money, any place to live, or an education, or any way of making more money. So I was forced to do what other people wanted me to do. And I felt at the time that it was just better for me to suffer from the dysphoria and feel like a woman inside, and at every opportunity go someplace where nobody else was and dress as a woman. And that's what I did. I felt that that was a very important part of my being. Since I started transition, the big thing that made my transition possible was really the internet. Being able to go online and look at the different resources possible, look at the various policies possible, made my transition possible to happen. And I remember studying some of the people who went ahead of me transitioning. The one which sticks out most in my mind is Steffi from Los Angeles. She told me how to walk through changing my name and changing the things that needed to be changed on my paperwork. She also told me to not worry about the religious part, that it would work out, and I was very happy for that. And she kind of, from her videos and from the things she said, gave me direction on how to deal with my employment situation. And she also gave me courage and encouragement from listening and watching what she was doing. Now, in this stage, if there were anything I would change, I listened to what Steffi had to tell me about changing my name. If I had that to do over again, several months after I had started the process, I ran onto a couple of trans girls in Houston when I was there at the Transgender Center, and they said that was absolutely the hardest way to do things. If I had it to go back through and do again, I would go to an attorney and pay him between $1,500 and $3,000 to have my name changed and have him do all the paperwork, because he could deal with the court system better. He could deal with the people around me better than I could. And I've learned that through the experience that I have been through. As far as hormones, I also looked at what Steffi and what many of the other girls told me about hormones as I was approaching wanting to go on hormones and making that step. And I did go and see a gender therapist, and I spent 3-4 months with a good gender therapist. She gave me a letter to get my hormones. I went to a good doctor that she recommended, and he laid out the blood testing and other things that were important, and laid out the hormone regimen that I needed and gradually put me on it. I think I did that in very much the right way, so I will say that was a right choice. When it came to the job situation, I had done enough study to know that you went to human resources first and talked to them, and they set up everything else, and they really did a good job for me. I still feel a little bit of resentment, a little bit of being an outcast at my job, but you don't see it visually. It's in the actions of people that are there and in the way in which they relate to me. But I expected that going in, and I wouldn't change anything there. I feel that going to human resources was a good way to go. I also felt that in dealing with my wife and daughter and religion as I've gone along, I immediately went and told my religious leaders, and they were very accepting of me. And I went, and I have always allowed my wife to have plenty of space, and that seems to have worked very well for me. And I would say also that our love for each other has helped us stay together. Well, I am afraid I did more things right than I did wrong, and I hope from my comments that you will, as you approach transition, go and get yourself a good gender therapist to help you through the path. That you'll get yourself a good attorney to go through the paperwork, and that you will work with your spouse and the religious people around you to be happy there. I think those are the keys that I found to make my transition smooth, and I will always be grateful to Steffi for all of the good videos she made where she discussed her actions there and the things which she did. I believe her videos are all still up on the internet at her site, at her YouTube site. Well, that's what I have to talk about today. I hope to see you for another topic again next week. You have a good afternoon. Bye.